Throughout the Israel-Hamas war, the Biden-Harris administration repeatedly asserted that the only real solution to pursue following the end of the war was the failed two-state solution. So when President Trump yesterday offered a different idea, everyone was caught off guard. While the president may have made the statement about taking over Gaza to kickstart a new conversation or get people to think outside the box like him, it's still worth asking, is such a plan doable? What would it take, and how would it change not just the Middle East, but, this potentially could have global implications? Joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Eric Bordenkircher. Help me with that.
Bordenkircher.
Bordenkircher. Thank you, Eric.
Kircher in German, church. So the person who lives next to the church, or the neighbor of the church.
Okay, Bordenkircher.
Yes.
That's nice.
Although my family now lives in France due to the moving of the lines between France and Germany.
So the name, you're right next door to the church, huh?
Yes.
Did they attend?
I would assume so, because I do, and my parents brought me up that way.
Well, let's talk.
But they've been here since in the 1830s. The first Bordenkircher came, so it's hard to know now.
So you're a research fellow at UCLA Center for Middle East Development. You publish extensively on Middle East policies. You've been on the program before. So let's talk about the president's idea here of. This is pretty radical, yes. Taking over Gaza Strip, the United States, taking it over, developing it, moving the 1.7, 1.6, whatever is left of the Palestinians to a border country, which during this entire 15-month ordeal, they've been in these camps because Egypt wouldn't take them, Jordan, nobody would take them. Mm-hmm. Is this to start a new conversation, or what is this?
Well, it's never a dull moment with the Trump administration, and his energy is quite remarkable how he keeps going like this. But this is going to be a tough sale, and it will be difficult to achieve. The reason the Jordanians don't want the Palestinians is because the Palestinians have caused problems for the Jordanians in its history. Black September attempt to overthrow the monarchy there.
And to their defense, Jordan's defense, they've taken in a lot of refugees from Syria in recent years. They've taken
and Iraq as well.
Yeah. So I've actually been in the refugee camps in Jordan, and they've done. I think, quite frankly, they've done a pretty good job because their population is not huge. And they've absorbed a lot. And
a significant amount of the population is Palestinian or has Palestinian roots as well. So this is going to increase that population. So it is understandable that they see this as a concern, as a threat.
But there's a lot of space there.
It's a lot of space. It's a lot of desert. Right. I guess they'd have to make the desert bloom for the Palestinians in certain areas.
What about Egypt? Of course, they seem to always be very fragile on the edge there, just kind of a chaotic place.
The Egyptians have their own problems. They have issues with the Suez Canal, with the Houthis, and they're losing a lot of money because you don't have a lot of maritime traffic going through there. So the situation with the regime there was rather precarious, I would say, and this would just add to that element of precarity. And the Egyptians have not wanted to deal with Gaza. They've, kept that wall up and they've never incorporated it.
They've got their own history of the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's true as well. Yes,
and it's not that long ago that the Arab Spring took place. So yes. Those things are still very fresh in their mind.
Yes. Now, maybe there are other countries as well. I think one of the countries that has to be involved in order for this to get some kind of credibility has to be the Saudis. But it doesn't appear at the moment from what they have expressed.
They responded pretty quickly saying
yes.
that this is off the table as an idea.
Yes. But at the same time, obviously it's a tough sell. But you still have a two-state solution on the board here because you still have the West Bank. And you can still have a Palestinian state in the West Bank.
But you go down that path, that's Judea and Samaria. You look at the security situation Israel would then have, because that's really the heart of Israel.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
I personally think, having been to Israel many, many times, post October 7th, that the idea of a two-state solution within the current boundaries of Israel is not workable. I would think that this was a two-state solution, at least in theory, and it didn't seem to work.
True. I think the Gaza situation has always been the most problematic because Hamas governs Gaza and Hamas has an absolutist approach to the state of Israel, and that is the demise of Israel.
But the people elected Hamas took over in 2007. The Gaza Strip, the withdrawal from Israel was in 2005, and it's steadily been a problem ever since then. But we've also got other issues in Samaria and Judea with under the Palestinian Authority. So it would almost seem that you've got to find, if you're going to go a two-state solution, you've got to find that second state someplace else outside of the boundaries of Israel.
Yeah, that's going to be a very tough sell with the Arab world. And at the moment, I don't see the Saudis supporting it, and the Saudis seem to be the linchpin of this. One of the reasons I do wonder if the Saudis would warm up to the kind of normalization of Israel without the establishment of a Palestinian state is after the transition in power in Saudi Arabia, because you're seeing a process here where the king is still in power, but MBS is in a lot of ways a de facto leader.
Yes.
Okay. But that transition still hasn't occurred. And that's a significant transition because you're moving from generation. You're no longer moving from brother to brother. So until that happens, I don't think MBS and the Saudis are going to jeopardize that instability that would come from the domestic scene in Saudi.
So, Dr. Bordenkircher, let's talk about it from this way. Let's say the president and he does this. He has a history of doing this, throwing out these out-of-the-box ideas that makes people's heads explode to force them to think. And so this now becomes a real problem for those in the Middle East saying, wait a minute, I mean, he could be serious. He might do this. We got to get together and figure this out. What could be some of those possible solutions they could come up with?
Possible solution in regards to Gaza?
Yes.
I'm very pessimistic on the situation. I find that the Arab world, particularly with the Arab governments, work very slowly. They have allowed Israel to do a lot of their bidding vis-a-vis Hamas, vis-a-vis Hezbollah, vis-a-vis Iran. Yeah. And it's kind of like,
let me clarify that for our viewers and listeners. The Arabs see Hamas, Hezbollah as problematic. And so they've allowed Israel to do the dirty work of having to keep them harnessed.
Yes. Right. And I think they kind of keep going down this path. Why should we make any concessions? Because they're doing our work for us.
As they say, it's time to fish or cut bait, because now this problem is theirs.
Yeah, and Trump, by making this announcement, has kind of put the onus on the Arabs and forces them to respond and to kind of follow up, put action behind their words of being kind of brothers of the Palestinians. And now they have to respond and to show that support. And I don't think it is there in quite a significant way as sometimes it appears, because we don't see Saudis, we don't see Jordanians, Lebanese showing up in Gaza fighting for the Palestinian movement anymore. This is a national and an increasingly reduced national movement.
Saudis have a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of money to clean up the West Bank. I mean, as the president made very clear, I mean, it's just like a big pile of rubble. Mm-hmm. Is this part of them, funding the bill to come in and provide security and clean it up?
I think that's the hope. But, as you can see with the Jordanians, you can see with the Egyptians, they don't want to get their fingers messy. They don't want to get involved in this because it becomes a very nasty situation, because then it looks like they're behind the Israelis propping up an Israeli agenda, and they're going to be targeted by Palestinians.
So could the further development of the Abraham Accords, where you got the United Arab Emirates was kind of the first one. You've got some others that have joined in. That Saudi Arabia is the next one they're hoping to get. Mm-hmm. Could that be a joint project of those nations?
I mean, it's a great idea, but those nations don't generally cooperate too well. we see with the Arab League, and the Arab League doesn't really function, doesn't really enforce, isn't really taken very seriously. So bringing those kind of members of the Abraham Accord together,
if the choice is between that and Mar Gaza, with Trump building a big, as people are joking, I know that's not what he's proposing, but to develop the Gaza Strip, which is a very nice piece of property there, if they're concerned that America might plant a flag there, maybe that will force them to work together.
It's worth an attempt. I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And, Trump has done something here that has kind of woken people up, forced them to respond. And this is his MO. We saw it with North Korea. I mean, it didn't necessarily work out the way that he'd hoped, but he took a path here that no one had considered. And it's worth giving it a try. So, yes, it is worth giving it a try. But having spent a lot of time there and seeing how things operate over a long period of time, I'm not overly optimistic.
It's a different culture.
Yes.
But how is the Iranian mullahs looking at this right now? How are they viewing all of these developments?
I mean, the Iranians are reeling. Their assets in the region have taken a hit. They're down, but I wouldn't say they're out.
Are they the type that could make a desperate move to try to regain their footing? I mean, are they a greater threat right now?
I don't know if they make a desperate move to regain their footing, but they have the potential to disrupt things. Disrupt things in the region, disrupt things with the Palestinian, Arab, Israeli dynamic, or even for the Americans as well. So that's not beyond them.
So, Eric, how volatile is that region right now, do you think?
I mean, we're looking at several failed states. Failed states do not operate well. They become bastions for radical extremists, non-state actors. So going forward, this is going to be a very precarious situation.
So not like today, it's not, it's not at the level is not at red, but if these, like Syria, you're making reference to, becomes a haven like Afghanistan was for terrorists, this could be a long-term, could be a problem for the next couple of decades. Long-term
problem. I think we're looking here now a different shade of Islamism. So the Shia Islamism that had dominated, particularly this kind of crescent of Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, has dissipated. But we've seen kind of move in here this other shade of Islamism, a Al-Qaeda-ish Muslim Brotherhood element that is not friendly towards American presence, not friendly towards Israel. So the problems haven't gone away, maybe to a certain extent, while they're trying to get their act in order in Syria. It's going to be rather quiet, but I don't know for how long.
So, what's the best move that the United States can make at this moment?
I think this thing, even though Trump it comes across initially as crazy, I think it's not a bad idea what he's done here. And to put the onus on the Arabs, particularly the Saudis, and make them respond, make them step up and act, and see, put some action behind those words of theirs, and see what they can do here.
He has a way of doing that, and I think people, again, they obviously are not watching him over the long term, because this is how he does his negotiations. He throws something bold on the table, gets people to respond to it, and then it moves from there. Now, I would agree that at some point that type of radical shock treatment it could be dangerous. It could have a boomerang effect.
True, and also too, I think Trump's focus changes quite quickly. So if there isn't an immediate response, he kind of moves on to another issue. So this could take a back seat for a period of time as well.
Well, I think, something's going to happen at the end of this 6-week ceasefire hostage deal, and I think we're halfway through that. So something's going to happen pretty soon when that comes in, because Israel's not going to stand around long allowing Hamas to rearm and regroup. Dr. Bordenkircher, I want to thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming into the studio. Always appreciate your insight.